I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, March the 1st, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards, expecting 12,000 head for the regular Monday sale here today on Monday. Going to be starting really early, got a good run of all classes of cattle there. Weren't quite up to speed last week, but going to get back to going this week and got some cattle to catch up on. Don't forget this Saturday, March the 6th, Joplin will be having that rescheduled special cow and bull sale that they were going to have during the cold snap there, and they rescheduled it for this Saturday, March the 6th, immediately following Hilltop Farms production sale that they're going to be having there at Joplin Regional Stockyards. You can view and bid both of those sales on dvauction.com. We're stuck on 114, and I tell you what, almost the whole month, except for just a few days, the first few days of February, almost the whole month of February, we were stuck on 114 as a fat cattle market, and we were thinking that we were going to work ourselves towards gaining some ground. We had been looking at spring futures on your live cattle well into the 120s, and we were going to start working our way that way. No, did not happen. We just continued to be stuck on 114. Your packers will absolutely not give in, won't do one thing to show any good faith to help in the market. They've done everything but pull a knife to keep from giving more for fat cattle. They've got a whole lot of cattle contracted. They've been getting their captive supplies built up for the end of this first quarter, start of the second quarter. And they know it. I mean, they're just better negotiators than the cattlemen are, and there's only 4 of them, so how hard is that for them to get their heads together and do that? And that's what they do. And I tell you what, guys, it's time that we get minimum negotiated cash trade. We've got to do it. I've been talking to the guys, both working back in DC and the guys that are pulling the strings, mostly with the U.S. Cattlemen's Association there, and they're getting some things going here. This Deb Fischer's bill, the Cattle Market Transparency Act, we're going to make a big push to get that. Even though NCBA is going to be fighting against it, even though your big state organizations like Texas Cattle Feeders, KLA, they're all going to be against it because they've sold out to the packers and the big corporates. But we've got to have it, guys, if we're going to preserve this industry, not just for the cattle feeders, but all the way down to your cow-calf producers, your feed stores, your rural schools and supermarkets and country life and cowboys, just all together. If we're going to get this, if we're going to continue to live like you guys and I have loved to live our lives and want to see the next generation and the next have a chance to raise cattle commercially for a living and hold their ground together and teach them all the responsibilities and the ethics and everything that goes with, we've got to have it. And you think, well, I don't want the government messing around in my business. Really? You want to continue to let this big monopoly of corporates run the show? They're heavily invested in fake meat, guys. All they worry about is preserving their percentage of the protein business. They don't care where it comes from. They don't care about your ranch. They don't care about your feedlot. They don't care about you and your family. They don't care about your kids or your grandkids. They're just all about making the big bucks and impressing their board and everybody that's in charge up there at the top of those corporates. And I tell you what, if we just sit here and let them do it, it's not going to last much longer, guys. We're just going to be like the corporate hog farms. You guys are just going to be working for them. But we can get minimum negotiated cash trade. It's going to force your packers to buy a certain percentage of their kill every week in a competitive open market. Imagine that. It would absolutely change and save this industry. We've got to do it. And we've got a big push on Deb Fischer's bill. We're going to be, and if you guys don't know what it is, it's going to be minimum percentage of negotiated cash trade within, and it's going to be for all of your major packers. But they're going to set the percentages within the different areas all over the country. They're going to do it, and I don't even care how much it has to be. You know, some guys want to bite off more than they can chew. I've heard people say they want 100%. Never going to happen. 50% could happen in the Midwest, but nowhere else. And I think you just have to set those percentages. I tell you what, guys, if it was 10% in the Southern Plains, it would make so much difference that you wouldn't believe it. And I feel strongly we can get more than that. So the Deb Fischer's bill would call for that. It would call for having a look, having regular individuals and producers and cattle feeders to be able to have a look at these sweetheart formulated deals that your big corporates have together. Get to see what kind of deals are out there, all kinds of transparency, hence the name of the act, but get to do that. Be a really good deal. I've heard of some more things that they're looking at going forwards towards, and they're going to be using mandatory price reporting to oversee that and to enforce that. And I've been hearing some different ideas out there, including if we don't get this bill pushed through, or the 5014 bill, but I feel like the Cattle Market Transparency Act has a better chance, and I think we can kind of adjoin the two. So we can have the 50 in some places, like I said, in the Midwest there. But, I've heard some talk and some ideas, which I think are pretty good ones. If we don't get this bill pushed through, then not reauthorizing mandatory price reporting. If the mandatory price reporting serves the packer, it forces the few cash sellers out there to give all their information to the packer so they can use it against them, to puke them out of it. I say don't turn that information in anymore. They don't get to see what the cash market is. And they could comprise it some other way and make your packers pay for that information if they want that information as a base price. Or if your corporate feeders want that information as a base price, they can pay for that information, and then some of your smaller cash sellers could use that money to try to reach a break even. I think that's an awful good idea right there. There's some other ideas out there that could go along with this, but we're going forward with this deal. Support some kind of a group that supports this. We do have Farm Bureau aboard now supporting minimum negotiated cash trade, and it looks like they're going to go with Cattle Market Transparency Act too. And we're in a Democratic administration. You know, what does the Democrats love to do more than anything? Regulate business. Well, here's a chance to get that done when it really could help. So let's go ahead and take advantage of it, get this deal pushed through, and stop bickering about it, because I guarantee you once it starts, you guys will love it. You'll see what supply and demand and competitive bidding and open markets do, and a transparent type of atmosphere there. We've seen several outfits talking about the disparage between what these packers could pay for cattle and what they are paying for cattle, and the huge profits that they're keeping in between. Of course, they're not nearly as big as they were a little less than a year ago when they were gouging during the worst onset of the COVID. But and you can't always just use the biggest, widest gaps and the most far outliers there. 2014's not coming back, guys. I'm sorry, but it's not coming back. If you've been to any of my talks, I explained how that market was artificially propped up and inflated there, and they're not going to allow that to happen again. And we are likely, because we are victims of ourselves, give a farmer or a rancher a market and he'll flood it as fast as he possibly can, because we can't sit back like a big corporate, like a packer can, and just be waiting at ease because we know everything's coming our way. No, guys are self-starters. You're out there pushing. You're trying to make money where you can, and so you will flood the market. We're not going to see 2014 again. So let's just talk about what's happening right now. Let's go back and do one of our figures that we were doing to show kind of what these packers were making during the worst of the pandemic. But you go in there and you take the value of your different quality cuts in there, and then you see the percent, nationwide percentage of grading. So that gives you the total value of your average carcass, you know, your typical fat cattle. and on a dress basis, that steer or heifer would be worth $238.27 dressed. Now we realize that that's your Packers wholesale meat price there, but it's kind of figuring up to what your carcass is worth there. You take that times 63%. Normally it goes 63.5, but cattle aren't dressing near that well right now. So just 63. Let's use conservative values. That would mean that $238 market, which the Packers could pay, would equate to a live market of $150. Well, we're sitting at $114. So we've got a $36 disparage between that. You take that times a 1,400 pound steer heifer there, and you see that your Packers are making just over $500 per head. So you think, well, it costs them to do business. Yeah, they can argue about it, but $125 is plenty when you've got as big of an operation as you have. You got value in numbers there, and you're running efficiently and going through there. $125 a head is plenty for them to operate that packing plant. Well, that just happens to be about what your drop value is. So there's a wash. So we could be sitting with the market. Now that would be giving your Packers. That wouldn't be giving your Packers much money there. That would be having them wash out. But you'd think they could share maybe $100 or $150 of that $505 profit that they're making there, but it's not likely. But what's some other things that we're chasing, or we're kind of going against here, fighting? How about Bill Gates there and his promotion of fake meat, as he sits there and eats his own greasy cheeseburger, talking about how all the wealthy countries should only eat synthetic beef. Yeah, let's look. Now, he is the largest farmland holder now, and so he wants people to eat meat that's made from plants. I wonder how greedy is he? How much does he want to go through? He's not going to stop flying his private jet. He's not going to stop eating greasy cheeseburgers. He wants you to stop doing all the stuff that you're doing. Well, his big argument is that the cattle cause so much emissions. Well, I was talking with Dave Duquette there with Western Justice, and that's an organization that fights for Western preservation, all the things we go for, keeping our guns, keeping our land, keeping things the cowboy way. He's fighting against some outfits that are trying to ban rodeo in different parts of the country. Tell you what, pretty good outfit to get in with, Western Justice. You can look them up and kind of see what they're doing. But they are organizing a study that's just about to start here, and they haven't named this study. I told him he needs to come up with a real catchy name here, and we'll promote the hell out of it. But this study is going to be done mostly by Oregon State, but they've got some other universities that's in there. But they've got a scientist there that thinks that actually cattle have net zero or maybe even a negative emission. Because if you look at what the things cattle do, well, if cattle weren't out there grazing all these grasslands, what would the wildfires be like that we would have? I mean, it would be unbelievable. And so, they'd say, well, cattle could run out there. Nobody would own them. And we wouldn't eat them, and we wouldn't harvest, Who's going to let them do that on their land? So you're going to take the land away from them and then turn their cattle out and just let them run wild and free like feral hogs? No. You got to have management of these domesticated animals. You got to have management, and guys know how to manage their grass. They keep it eat off, and it comes back. And if you would have wildfires like crazy. Also, he was explaining to me that I didn't have any idea, but when you have forage go dormant, and there's a lot of it, it actually puts off emissions of itself. And they think there would be so much more of that if we didn't have cattle grazing all this grass, that actually believing that cattle have net zero emissions, if you take it all into considerations, or maybe even a negative. But that'll be an interesting study to look at. Let's talk about your markets for last week. April live cattle futures. Monday started out down 62. Tuesday they were down 185. Wednesday back up $1.02. Thursday down 55 cents, and Friday down $1.67, with April falling all the way back to 120. It wasn't very far, it was way up in the mid 120s, guys, and they're not going to let us have a handsome fat cattle market of $1.20. I know we were all kind of eyeballing that thing, but there was no way we were going to be able to do it. You look at February, there at the end of the week, you know, it was down to almost $4. Of course, there was only 200 and some contracts still open there, but you know, just taking it all the way down, and but it actually didn't help anybody. There would have been very few guys that were able to take advantage of a positive basis there, because like I said, there was just too few contracts still going out there. But you look at June live cattle ended the week at 118.42. Everything down hard on Friday. March feeder cattle Monday, they were up 20 cents. Tuesday down 75. Wednesday up $1.80. Thursday up a nickel, and then Friday down hard, down $1.75. With March feeder cattle ending the week at 138.67. April ended the week at 142.57. You look at your corn and beans. They volleyed back and forth and were very volatile, but has settled back in there close to kind of where they were, with corn ending the week last week at 5.55 and a half per bushel, beans at 14.05 and a quarter, and it just looks like they're going to stay somewhere in there, guys, until we get to the new crop, and then they'll probably take that market away from those guys after they get all their inputs locked in. But how about your fat cattle trade for last week? Through Thursday, only 39,600 head in your 5-area feeding region. Just continued with light trade. Why? Because they've already got so many cattle tied up. A lot of guys have been doing basis trades. Those are the guys that are getting the best prices as far as the market goes. A lot of guys, you know, taking the 2 over June for spring delivery. You know, that's actually wasn't too bad when it was still up there, but now it's backed up there under 118 and a half. But, you know, less than 40,000 head through Thursday. We're live steers and heifers selling from 110 to 117, mostly 114, but significant trade from 113 up to 115.50. Now, the 115 and 115 and a half was mostly reserved for guys that fed under a shed and on slats there. The cattle were a little cleaner and would dress out a lot better, and we had more protection during the harsh storms there. But how about dress sales, steers and heifers, 178 to 183. You had a price spread there from 180 to 182. All that steady for the most part. Friday we did have a little bit more trade. Iowa had 900 head, 114 to 115, a little bit of 178 and a half to 182. Nebraska 2,500 head on Friday at 114 and 182. Kansas 7,200 from 114 to a few 114 and a half. And Texas 3,100 head from 113 to 114. Box beef cutout values. This is what, you know, is frustrating. Right during February, which is the most depressing and downer month of the whole year, and then we're glad to see it gone, your packers were able to boost wholesale beef prices, which never happens. But your box beef cutout values, the weighted average of all of last week's trades, choice cuts $240.39, up $3.83, and that's very close. That $240.39 is very close to where it traded at the end of the week. Selects up $4.87 on the weighted average of all of last week's trades compared to the previous weeks at $229.76, and that's very close to where they traded late in the week also. Your slaughter, 666,000, very impressive with a big Saturday. That was 114,000 more than the previous week. Now that's big time, but of course, you know, had so many shutdowns during that cold week. But, you know, not all those are steers and heifers, guys. A lot of them would be cows. And, you know, I learned that Cavanis there just south of me in Hereford, Texas, they were closed every day but one during that cold week, and they didn't even run a full ship that day. So that's going to account for a lot. And so it's not all steers and heifers, but a lot of it is. That 666,000 from last week was 38,000 more than the same week a year ago. So, but we're going to start seeing some things that are hard to compare now, because we're getting to the time of year where we really started seeing the effects of COVID a year ago. So it's going to be kind of hard to gauge. What else is going on? I've been getting to spend some time out in my native eastern New Mexico. Was out there on Saturday videoing some bulls at the Tucumcari Bull Test there in New Mexico State property there and their facilities. Got several producers got bulls consigned to that, and I think we videoed about 113 of those bulls, and that'll be going on a timed only sale here in about a week, so you guys be looking for that Tucumcari Bull Test there in eastern New Mexico. Monday here, going to be going out to Maxwell, New Mexico, kind of between Springer and Raton, if you guys know where that's at, to the Reverse Rockin' R Ranch sale. That's Chris Earl and family. They operate that now. And so we'll be going up there with him, another friend of mine, Wes Teeman, that partners with him on some consulting, and always have a good sale there. And you talk about big time numbers, talk about EPDs and some breeding stock that some of you purebred operators might want to introduce into your herds. So be sure and get on the Reverse Rockin' R sale here today on Monday, March the 1st. Let's talk about your feeder market last week. Real-time index ended the week at 137.69 based on an 800-pound steer. That was down $3.21 compared to the end of the previous week. And what was that all about? Well, we just didn't have very many sales at all that previous week, and when we did have some deals of 8-weight cattle, some heavy 7-weight cattle, they were likely in the northern plains. They were higher quality kind of cattle, and they were boosting that index price. And now that we start getting some southern plains cattle back in there like we did this past week, especially at the tail end of the week, really sucked that thing back down. And I'm expecting your prices to be lower here this week. There's just too many numbers. Calves probably higher again because we know how short we're going to be at calves now. Not going to be enough turnout cattle because not near as many people fall calve as need to, and there's just not enough calves out there. I don't know why those that don't have the ability to do it don't start transitioning. But anyways, I'm expecting lower markets here with heavy receipts starting out here on Monday. I want to give a shout out. We're starting a new month, so the market of the month for March, we're talking about who did the best job in February, and I'm tickled to announce your Zactran market of the month is Miles City Livestock Commission, Miles City, Montana. Bart Medjed there does a great job. Been up there and did a talk at their place, but you talk about here of late, over the last month or so, they have just consistently sold cattle, calves and big feeder cattle at the top of the market. They had sales right through the cold. You don't think it gets cold in Miles City, Montana. Got another thing coming, and that's why they were able to do it, because they're tough and they know how to handle that kind of thing there. But tell you what, good people there running a really nice sale barn. If you guys haven't took note of it, Bart's son there was a world champion calf roper there of last week. He'll always be a world champion calf roper, but he held the title last year and still doing very well at that. But tell you what, Miles City Livestock Commission, Miles City, Montana, congratulations for being the Zactran Market of the Month. Your cash feeders last week, trends very uneven, not well tested for the most part, and I talked why the index was down. Your receipts were down, but they're going to be heavy this week. Your calves were sharply higher last week, though. You know, even in the southeast there, sharply higher on calves because they were completely shut down in the places that they send them out in Kansas and West Texas and places like that. Oklahoma were all shut down, so they couldn't buy anything. But then they got a little bit of moisture and things started warming back up. They put some orders back in. Calves sharply higher. But we're just a little bit uneven on where our yearling market is, or they say yearlings are giant calves, but our feeder cattle market. But how about some markets late in the week? Our best Saturday sale on Cattle Market Central, Fort Scott, Kansas there. Fort Scott Livestock had over 3,000 head of feeder cattle there. Look at their market report. And they're not covered because no government employee wants to work on Saturday. But feeder steers $2 to $3 lower. Steer calves and all weights of heifers look like they were several dollars higher there, but a really nice sale there at Fort Scott, Kansas there. And look at some of these individual quotes I pulled out of there. Now, there's nothing wrong with these prices here, but when you start seeing some Southern Plains markets, and I'd still consider that a Southern Plains market, you're getting that many loads in there, pumping them at a reasonable price there, and not some of those toppy reputation deals you get a lot farther north. It's going to pull that index down quite a bit because we just haven't seen that many receipts of those type of cattle. But you look at those cattle, they're selling pretty well, and I expect that index will be pulled back down there in the low 130s based on an 8-weight steer by the middle of the week. Individual quote there. How about winter livestock auction, winter South Dakota? 70 head, 816-pound steers on Friday at 138 1/4, and that was after the board closed sharply lower. That's your feeder flash for Monday.